I was at Sanctum a couple months ago, and I was here for about a week or two. I'm not sure, something like that. I had a good experience here. I liked it here, but for personal reasons, I ended up leaving, and I was sorry that I left. You know, I didn't want to leave, but I needed to leave, so I did. I ended up falling ill, and I underwent a lot of tests, different tests, to find out why I was so sick. A doctor just happened to notice that my lymph nodes were enlarged, so asked if I would agree to a biopsy, a lymph node biopsy, and I did. I agreed to it. And the results came back positive for cancer. So I knew I had to change my situation because I needed to be stable and have support. So I applied to move back to Sanctum, and I feel like it's home. This is home. Sanctum provides security and support. You know, it's a home environment. It doesn't feel like clinical. It doesn't feel like a hospital or, you know, a nursing home or an institution. It feels like a home. I feel like I'm home. I've learned a lot in my short stay here already. You know, about myself, and that I can achieve, you know, things that I thought were impossible before, you know. This might be the only chance that I have to experience this fundraiser, and I don't know. I'm excited about it. I don't know much about it, but from what I've heard, it's really cool. But I decided to donate $1,000 to the challenge, and challenge all the citizens in Saskatoon to do their part, to do what they're able to. I'm not sure that I'll get to take part in another one of these. I might not be here next year. So I just want to make the most of it, and the best thing I could do is to help that way. I'm not a person of means. I don't have a lot of money, and I value the money that I do have. I'm very careful with how I spend my money, and I think that I couldn't think of a better thing to spend my money on. I couldn't. It's the least I could do for all that I've been given since this place has been a part of my reality. Yeah. I'm really grateful, very grateful for everything.
Anto Temtik, my dear friends, Nuakumagantik, all my relations, Tamskatinawao, I greet all of you. Lyndon Linklater and Sigasun, Gaptuganote, Piesu Awa Sissa Skiganik. My name is Lyndon Linklater, and I come from Thunderchild Cree Nation. I've been asked tonight to begin with opening remarks to recognize that we are situated on Treaty 6 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis. I want to recognize particularly all of the Nehiawak people that were signatory to treaty, but I also want to recognize our friends to the south, the Whitecap Dakota First Nation, and I also want to recognize our Métis relatives, specifically the Round Prairie Métis, who were next door to Whitecap Dakota once upon a time. I want to start off with that land acknowledgement, recognizing that we are all treaty people and that we share the land together. I want to start off by doing an opening prayer, and how I'm going to do this to start this event is I'm going to do just a moment of silence and to do my prayer in silence at this point. However, I will be doing it on the evening of October 2nd while you are listening to me virtually. but they presented me some tobacco, some stimao in our language as part of the traditional protocol. So I'm very honored to have been presented this tobacco here. So I'm just going to start off by doing a prayer in my own mind, just a moment of silence. So just bear with me, ladies and gentlemen, as I do this. So thank you for that. So again, I want to welcome everybody to this evening's event, to this fundraising gala. And I thank you for attending. I thank all of the individuals that were involved, that put this together every year. I want to thank the individuals who participate, the celebrities, as well as all of the people who utilize the services. I want to recognize them as well, and especially the staff and the leadership that is part of the Sanctum Care Group. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for being here once again. Have a beautiful evening. Thank you so much.
Good evening. I am Stephanie Massicott, and I am delighted to be your host for the 5th annual Sanctum Survivor Gala presented by Vive Healthcare. I am coming to you from my home in Saskatoon on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis. We pay our respects to the Métis and First Nations ancestors of this place and reaffirm our relationship with one another. I want to say a big thank you to Elder Lyndon Linklater and the drumming group Red Scout for starting us off in a good way. We would also like to send our thoughts and prayers to Sam's family and friends during this difficult time. Now, normally I would be seeing all your lovely faces, beautiful dresses, wonderful shoes, but this year is obviously a little different. And even if you're in your pajamas, I'm sure you look fantastic. We are privileged to be gathered from the safety and comfort of our own homes, but this is not the reality for everyone in our community. And tonight our goal is to continue to build awareness around the challenges faced by those who are homeless. The increased social and economic pressures we're experiencing at this time are disproportionately affecting those most vulnerable in our community. Thank you. Your presence tonight is a testament to your commitment to making a difference of the lives of people in our community. Normally, the gala would follow a 36-hour challenge wherein teams of 2 participants are given tasks to complete within 36 hours. Each task aimed to demonstrate certain challenges that society is often unaware of, but are an everyday reality for those who experience poverty, homelessness, and chronic illness here in Saskatoon. In an attempt to make this challenge as realistic as possible, participants were donated clothes, shoes, and were responsible for sourcing their own food. Here is a quick look at the impact the challenge has had on our past participants. The Sanctum Survivor event is a 36-hour challenge where we've been asked to live on the streets of Saskatoon for 36 hours. They take away your ID, your money, your health card, the clothes off your back, and you're kind of left to fend for yourself.
People often say, I wish people knew. I wish people could understand the difficulties that our population is faced with on a daily basis, the systemic discrimination that they incur on a daily basis, and the multiple barriers that exist for them. That's kind of where the idea of Sanctum Survivor started, is if we could take a community leader and literally have them walk in someone's shoes for 36 hours, maybe through their voice, we can start breaking down some of those misconceptions that exist around homelessness and chronic disease in our community.
Everything's going to be a task, from getting ID to talking to somebody about getting rent. We're just not equipped to do any of this, and it's going to be interesting to see how much rejection we're actually going to get.
I think it'll just sort of expose me to exactly what the services look like. Things like where they're located matters, and how they integrate with other services matter.
I've been playing Brittany, who is pregnant and scared and homeless. As a physician and as somebody who provides care to women who are carrying another life, they are afraid not only for themselves but for their babies. And I felt that today.
You see somebody who is homeless and you have a much better understanding of what they're dealing with. They're not just dealing with some situation that you're seeing them in briefly, they're dealing with that moment after moment.
Sanctum Survivor has given our organization an army of leaders in our community. Their support has allowed us to advocate in a way that previously we wouldn't have been able to, but also to garner the attention of important people who make decisions about programs in our community.
You know, I've lived in Saskatoon for a long time, and I feel like I'm seeing either a different city or a completely different side of my own city. My world in Saskatoon, I moved from point A to point B to point C, and I have my head down and I'm going fast. And today I had to slow down and look at places and look at people that I don't think I ever really looked at before.
People who experience homelessness oftentimes don't know where they're going to spend the night, and it's a struggle all day and a last minute thing, which is why we chose to not let you know where you're sleeping till now.
Not only is Sanctum Survivor an awareness raising event, it's also a fundraiser for Sanctum Care Group. Much of our programming is not funded, and we rely solely on the funds that we raise through Sanctum Survivor to fund critical positions like our cultural support worker, our beehive support worker, our peer support positions, which are critical to the ongoing success of the residents who graduate out of our programs.
I think it's hard to imagine what this would be like 365 days of the year.
I don't think any of us is actually very far from any of these people. A few bad breaks and we could all be there.
I didn't think I'd be so inspired by these people. I think we can make a difference and we can actually make it better.
Every time we do Survivor, we know that we're getting closer to creating more awareness and understanding in our community that will hopefully break down barriers for the population that we work with. And on the smallest level, will maybe make somebody think differently when they pass somebody who's struggling with homelessness in our community, and maybe they'll greet them with a smile.
At the end of the day, some of these people just need someone to listen to them and some compassion and caring. And that's what all the organizations down 20th Street do, and that's just so important.
Everyone deserves to have a home with a roof and four walls.
We are not the survivors at all. They are warriors out there.
Wow, what a powerful recap. And to relive some of my own experiences, it brings back a lot of memories and reminds me and us why we're here tonight. And as you heard from Sam at the beginning of our program, she couldn't think of a better way to spend her money. So if you feel compelled to make a donation tonight, you can do so online or simply by texting your name and donation amount to 306-241-6550. Again, that is 306-241-6550. Now, tonight's virtual event wouldn't be possible without the support of our sponsors. Despite the event being turned on its head, our sponsors have stuck by our side, and we would like to take this opportunity to thank them. Vive Healthcare, the Kinsman Club of Saskatoon, Gilead, Jan Martel and Alice Kuipers, Sanctum Care Group Board of Directors, Versa Films, Rock and Bloom, and of course, the Barn at Winds Edge. We are so grateful for the support of all of our sponsors. Here's a short message from our title sponsor this evening, Vive Healthcare.
Good evening. What an honor to be here with you this evening. My name is Dacia Hibbert, and I'm the General Manager for Vive Healthcare Canada. First, I would like to extend a massive congratulations and thank you to our organizers this evening who have brought us all here together. Organizing an event like this is hard on a good day, let alone against the backdrop of a global pandemic. Thank you to everyone at Sanctum Care Group for making tonight happen. I'd like to just take a moment to tell you a little bit about Vive Healthcare and why we support Sanctum Survivor and the other work Sanctum does. Vive may be familiar to some of you as we are a global pharmaceutical company focused exclusively on HIV. We have a vision to end the epidemic through delivering innovative HIV medicines that make a difference. This approach allows us to keep people living with HIV at the heart of everything we do, and the community is integrated throughout the entire organization of Vive Healthcare. A great example of this is our work with Sanctum Care Group. Sanctum is much more than a care group. It's a family for some, and it's a lifeline for many, as we've heard the stories throughout the evening. As we all know, the gap in support for those living with HIV pre-existed COVID, but COVID has pulled the focus from the epidemic. Community organizations like Sanctum have been responsive, adaptive, and agile over these last 18 months to ensure their services, their important services, continue to reach the most vulnerable. And I'm so very proud that we have the honor as Vive Healthcare to continue to support and be a partner during these times. We wish you continued success, and thank you for all the work you do. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, Vive Healthcare, for your continued support of this event. Now, for the next 15 minutes, I have an exciting challenge that has been issued by Alice Kuipers and Jan Martel. Alice and Jan will be matching all donations made up to $5,000. So, your $20 becomes $40, $100 becomes $200, and so on. You can do so online or again by texting your name and the amount you would like to donate to 306-241-6550. Easy as that. And Reminder, it gets doubled. So next in our program, we're going to hear from Sanctum Care Group's Beehive support worker, Keith, someone who was on the front lines of the Sanctum Care Group and knows firsthand how the generosity of Alice, Yan, and you aid in the support he's able to provide.
I spent a long time using drugs as an escape without realizing what I was doing or why I was doing it. I just thought it was a normal thing to do. So I spent, 22 years of my life using and hustling and homeless, and I never would have suspected I would end up in this field. It was never like the plan, like, oh, here's what I'm gonna do. Like, this is just kind of where I ended up. Even when I was a drug dealer back in the day, before there was needle exchanges and whatnot, I was still doing like harm reduction work without even realizing, which gave me a good basis for what I do now. Because often they don't relate to someone who's just in education, right? There's got to be that trust built, and I have the advantage of having been there, so like I know how to build that trust. So I've been with Sanctum just shy of 4 years. They had the Beehive running for about 6 months before I came on. It was an 11-suite apartment building based in harm reduction with low barrier access. It's transitional, so it's brief stays, but then if you're a good fit, you can stay. Our HIV rates are out of hand. Our drug use is out of hand. Our people are 9 times out of 10 homeless. All the systems are set up against them. So we get them when they're most broken, and we try and bring them back to something where they can cope. One of my most difficult people stopped using drugs, got a job, got housing, is virally suppressed, and like so happy to tell me about it. And I was just really, really excited for them. That's like the bonus part of it, right? Like to see them change and become better. The pandemic has made it hard, but I'm still over there and we're still running. So there's that. We've had no excess funds. We haven't had any current first aid training. We don't have, all of those things that help us do our job are super important. I'll go to the first aid as my example. So I ended up reversing an overdose in this hallway at my office. And the first thing I thought after it was done, and it was super traumatic and it was a big deal and all these things happened and it took them a long time to get there. And the first thing I said after when I called to tell everybody, like the management, was, I don't have valid CPR. We need to change that. But we don't have any money, so there's no changing it yet.
Thank you, Keith, so much for sharing your story. And Keith is so amazing. He obviously can make light of the situation, but the truth is these funds are desperately needed. So a reminder, for the next 10 minutes, Jan Martel and Alice Kuipers will be matching all donations made to Sanctum Care Group. You can make a donation again online or simply by texting your name and the amount you would like to donate to 306-241-6550. Again, that's 306-241-6550. Now, community leaders who have participated in the Sanctum Survivor 36-hour challenge have been deeply impacted by their experiences. I had the opportunity to speak with 3 Sanctum Survivor Challenge alumni and talk with them about how participating in the challenge has stuck with them and impacted how they lead in our community. We're joined now by a few past participants of the Sanctum Challenge, Morgan Hockel, Stephanie Klovchak, and Greg Bamford. Thank you so much for joining me. I want to start with flashing back to your experience with the challenge. I know it's been a few years for all of you, but taking that challenge into your leadership roles within the city. Morgan, I'll start with you because you have the mic. It's been a challenging year for everybody, but for the fire department as well. Can you tell us how you've reflected back and taken that experience into your position?
Thanks, Stephanie. So when I reflect on the involvement in that 36-hour challenge, it was an impact on me, and seeing within our community what people face. You know, we only experienced a very small piece of what they face day to day. And so in terms of my work today, it's really helping me guide our direction, our vision as a service, in terms of finding ways to better support those that have the most complex needs in our community, especially when we look at homeless, addictions, mental health. And so much of the work that I'm involved in today through the Community Safety and Wellbeing Executive with the mayor, the tribal chief, police chief, and health, we're totally focused on this. And what it's helped me do is really be able to focus on developing more partnerships and relationships, working together to know that we really need to look at alternative ways to help those in the community that most need us to help them find a better way. We all have different needs, and we all need those supports in different ways.
Now, it's not just about the professional aspect, it's the personal aspect as well, which kind of mingles together in your life. We've seen a few low-income housing being shut down by the fire department due to unsafe living conditions. But how hard is that for you personally, having this challenge behind you and then having to go in and take away these people's homes?
So for sure, we don't want to see anybody displaced when the fire department has to look at rehousing people. We would prefer to be more proactive than reactive. In the case of both of those properties, we had to be reactive to a system where we weren't collaborating with all the partners as well as we could have, all of us having a stake in it. So when I look at the impact of Sanctum on me, it's, as I said earlier, it's really helping guide that. But the biggest thing for me has been the focus on these relationships and partnerships. And so from the city center in and Prairie Heights, we're now collaborating much more with all these partners. We're planning and have a strategic, coordinated approach in place for the future, but knowing that we really need to stay focused on that. So it's been it was an important event for me to take part in for my career, and it's been very helpful going forward.
All right, I'm going to move on to Steph with Tourism Saskatoon. Again, you're in a unique position because you're trying to bring people to our city and show off the best parts of it. But we can't forget about those who are struggling in our city. They are a big part and an important part of our city and who we are as Saskatoon. So how has the challenge affected you and your leadership role?
Thanks, Steph. I think, first of all, in recognizing that, not just acknowledging, but recognizing that we are here on Treaty 6 territory and in the homeland of the Métis, which makes every one of us treaty people. And so really going back to the origins of the treaty, the nature of the treaty, and the inherent rights that exist within the treaty really is what's focal for me and our team right now at Tourism Saskatoon. And so, seeing things through the lens of our visitor economy, and we talk a lot about, place attractiveness, and especially during the pandemic, how we attract people back to Saskatoon when so many other destinations are going to be offering these compelling invitations to come and visit. But rather than thinking about attractiveness, we are so focused on the place authenticity right now, the authentic nature of this place, which includes people who are experiencing houselessness and food insecurity. And so we're really asking ourselves through the lens of what we do, how we can contribute back into the community and make sure that everything that we do is an an economic opportunity for all within the means of our planet, creating a circular economy. And so when I think about it in terms of, right now in the thick of a pandemic, what opportunities are we offering to communities who would not have access to jobs? Right now, the hospitality sector is having a huge labor shortage. And so when we think about that, there's an opportunity for individuals that have never worked in the visitor economy or the tourism sector to have employment, but there are massive systemic barriers in their way. And that was one of the biggest realizations, I think, and impacts as someone who experienced this challenge is, first and foremost, that could have been me. Second of all, that there are huge barriers in place for individuals who are experiencing houselessness and food insecurity that make it next to impossible for them to access the economy. And really, at the end of the day, how we impact people's lives, how we change people's lives, is giving them access to the economy, a job, so they can put food on the table for their families, so they can go home to a home, first and foremost. And so, that is so important, I think, to any of us who are leaders in the community right now, is thinking about how we provide access to the economy for anyone who has experienced any insecurity right now, especially during COVID, and making sure that the work that we do is contributing back to changing people's lives.
And I think you keep talking about the pandemic, which is something we've all experienced. And I think it was eye-opening to a lot of people who maybe had that job security back before the pandemic, may have unfortunately lost their position, are having to now access these facilities that we all used when we did Sanctum, the food bank. Do you think that it's going to change the perspective of our community? People who may have never experienced something like this now getting a tiny taste. I don't want to say they're experiencing it fully, but getting a tiny taste of that insecurity.
Oh, I hope so. And we would never wish insecurity upon anyone. And I think that the consistency of our experience right now of openness and closeness, starting and stopping, we're okay and then we're not okay, is really going to hopefully earth us in a realization that we are nothing without each other. And that the more that we strengthen the community members of ours that have less security, the more secure that we are. And that's very relevant to our business and tourism, but that's relevant to anyone who's attracting investment or, building people into the city or showcasing our city in any way. We are only as strong as our weakest link. And so I think that if any of us have experienced insecurity or hardship during this time, I hope that, it's not something that we lose sight of anytime soon.
Thank you so much, Steph. And Greg, I want to talk to you a little bit about the challenge itself and how it would be so easy for any of us to experience this challenge. And then after that 36 hours, after the gala, everything's said and done, to just move on with our lives. But why did it stick with you, and what have you done with your leadership role?
Thanks, Steph. I guess, first of all, going into this challenge, I realized that I'm someone that can't unsee something. So it had a huge and lasting, effect on me. One thing that I saw for the first time is the stories of the people that are living homelessness as they're homeless. But another thing that I realized is that the trauma side of it, I never saw it from that perspective before and understood the history of it, and also saw it from the racism side of things. So. That being, I'm currently on the board for Haven Family Connections and board chair, and understanding preventative care and how that will affect going forward into society. And then also seeing the disconnect that we have, at least I had, with the nonprofits in Saskatoon, and realizing that there is no place where that you can actually go and find out about these nonprofits, and that most even board members that sit on these nonprofits don't understand their programming as good as that they possibly could. So I guess after the challenge, we started looking at how could we not just share a little bit of awareness, but how could we have an impact to help the people that maybe want to make a difference but don't know how. So I think from there, we just started looking at, I guess, what our options were.
And what were those options?
Well, the one thing that we found is that you can't go and find out where nonprofits are in one place. So if you searched where to donate, let's say clothing, 50 15 different places would pop out. Only 2 of those places would actually be in Saskatoon. And we thought that there should be a kind of a hub where people can go find out what the nonprofits do, as well as where they can donate. So from there, I guess, we decided, while reaching out to a lot of the nonprofits and seeing this idea was even possible, we decided to create a connecting hub called One Small Step to be able to connect the community to the real needs of nonprofits.
And kind of an ideal time for the way that it launched. Coming up with the pandemic, a lot of people right at the beginning, I think, were wanting to give back, who could give back. And I find that quickly faded off. But now is the time to start thinking about that again, because we're not out of the thick of it yet. And now's the time to kind of give back.
Nonprofits are in crisis probably 90% of the time. And one thing that we've learned is that the thought process of connecting people to the nonprofits works, but the way that we thought it would first solve the issues isn't the way that they're done, because the nonprofits updating a website isn't probably their first mandate to the day, right? It's just helping the people that they support. So we're constantly changing something and trying to evolve with what works for the nonprofits and then also works for the community. So trying to solve this problem, I think, is something that we'll continually look at. And with the community support and the nonprofits working together, we'll be able to build out something, I think, that can work for Saskatoon and hopefully Saskatchewan.
Well, I want to thank you all so much for joining us. I wish that I had more than 15 minutes to talk with you all, because you're doing such great work in the community. And like I said, it would be so easy for any of us to just forget about the 36 hours and move on and move forward with our lives. But the fact that you have taken this challenge and just propelled forward makes me excited to see what's going to happen with our community and with Sanctum as it continues to grow. So thank you so much.
One Small Step is a website where people here in our community can easily find out about the work of nonprofits and also find out exactly what they need on a day-to-day basis.
One Small Step started because there was a disconnect between the nonprofit world and the community. After doing the homeless challenge, Ali and I realized that, first of all, it was very hard to find out what the daily needs were of nonprofits. At the same time, I shared a video, and it seemed like after sharing that, a lot of people reached out and wanted to know how they could help. It means that the community was wanting to make a difference, but there was no answer to it.
The website has 2 audiences. Firstly, it's you as a potential donor. You can go on that site and find out exactly what any nonprofit in the city needs. But also, it has to be useful for nonprofits. It has to be easy for them to be able to post their needs. It has to be easy for them to share with you their work.
So through the use of One Small Step, Sanctum Care Group was able to develop a new partnership with a hotel partner in which they had an excess of linens of which they were trying to find a purpose for. And up until One Small Step, they didn't realize that Sanctum Care Group obviously had a purpose for linens.
With technology being the basis of society right now, there's no reason why it's so hard for people to be able to find a place where they can give or where they can donate their time. And so I think with One Small Step, it can be that call to action for immediate gratification in what they want to do within their community.
Oftentimes, non-for-profits are overlooked, and this is an opportunity to shine a light on the important and valuable work that non-for-profits do for everyday people in our community.
We need to support each other because we all have something to give, and One Small Step makes it easy for you to take that step and support someone right here in Saskatoon.
It has been so amazing to see One Small Step take flight in our community. If you haven't had the opportunity to check out One Small Step and learn more about some of the remarkable organizations in our city, you can visit the website www.onesmallstepsk.ca. Now, our next 3 Sanctum Survivor Challenge alumni take time to reflect on how the challenge hit home for them and their thoughts on what we need to do to create change moving forward. We are joined now by 3 Sanctum Challenge participants, Chief Troy Cooper, Betty Ann Adam, and Kurt Dahl. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, Troy, you are on the front lines when it comes to harm prevention in our city. You took part in the Sanctum Challenge a couple years ago. How did that impact you professionally and personally, and what have you done moving forward?
You know, I think personally what I saw was something quite unexpected. People that don't have to think a lot about the marginalized community, or people who are addicted, or people who need help. People like me who have that privilege and don't have to think about that an awful lot, sort of make the assumption that there are structures, provincial structures, formal structures that are going to take care of those things. And I think personally what I learned was that in Saskatoon and no doubt in other places, it requires an awful lot more than just those formal structures, that we really rely on groups like Sanctum, the NGOs, the volunteers, the faith groups, just to actually serve our community. And that was a learning moment for me personally, how really critical those other supports are. Professionally, I think I saw my role. I saw a role for police, for government organizations to work together to make sure that we were complementing each other, to make sure that we were all surviving together, because we have to co-produce that kind of safety, co-produce that kind of community health.
Now, have you brought anything into place when it comes to the Saskatoon Police Service? When it comes to your experience with Sanctum, I know there are some community officers that are a little bit different than what we normally think when we think Saskatoon Police.
Yeah, so in the area in and around Sanctum, we have community mobilization officers. So these are officers with a little bit extra training, a little bit extra understanding about the community that they're serving there. They serve with some compassion and some empathy. They, I think, complement the work that's done by the other organizations. And we just sort of see, I think, overall the role of police in the community in a different light. We're looking at our role, as I mentioned, in helping some of those other organizations, making sure our partners are strong and that they exist, because we've come to understand that policing on its own is pretty inefficient in helping, and pretty inefficient in dealing with communities.
But by no means are we done.
Oh, absolutely not. No, I think it's you see policing generally transforming and changing the way we look at our role in the community. And experiences like I had are how we can understand what the community needs us to change and what the community needs us to look like.
Oh, Betty Ann, I want to move on to you. It's been a few years since you've taken part in the challenge, but has anything stuck with you, and where do you think we can improve as a community in Saskatoon?
One of the things that sticks with me from that experience was finding myself as part of the community of the people who are homeless and displaced. It was a real eye-opener to, and when I talk about community, I'm talking about really seeing the humanity of the people who are suffering with extreme poverty and with extreme dislocation, because when we put ourselves in that position for however short a time it was, that's how we were seen by the world. And so suddenly I found that the poorest of the poor who Sanctum seeks to help saw us as their brothers and sisters. And there was a camaraderie. There was a really moving generosity among the people to each other. And and I saw, I found people making a personal connection to me, looking me in the eye, who normally, I don't know if I avoided their eyes or if they avoided me, but I became aware over that 36 hours, like we saw some people more than once, of course, right? I mean, we were all over the inner city and we were going around on our, by foot. And so we were running into these same people, and it was, people were right away, they recognized you, they said hi. And we saw people helping each other. People, like, whether or not they had known, like, we saw people that we'd met in different contexts, and later we'd run into them, and like somebody's pushing another person in a wheelchair who was by himself a little while ago. It was really, it was gratifying to know that everybody wants to be useful. Everybody cares about other people that they meet. We saw many people, of course, who were like in really stressful situations. And we, just seeing the humanity at all levels. I mean, not to say that I didn't see humanity before, but there was something about being accepted as part of that group at that time that I just, it makes me feel embarrassed to think that I have greater respect now than I did before. It's humbling to realize that I had that level of arrogance. So it stayed with me, and I like to believe that it's made a difference for me in my life and the way I interact with people.
So, having participated, where do you think we as a community of Saskatoon can change and help others moving forward?
Well, I think that Troy hit the nail on the head when he talked about the helping agencies that are there, supporting the helping agencies. There are organizations already in place, and all of them need help. Whether, obviously financial help is always number one, because you can't do anything without money. But I mean, if you have the time, if you really want to, there are many places that need volunteers and who would be happy to have your time to help them do the things that they need to do to help the people. On a personal level, you also wonder if you can help. And it's a bit of a not slippery. It's hard to know sometimes how to behave on a personal level. There's a fella I always would see, right? I'd drive by and I'd always see this guy. And so one time, it so happened that I was stopping at a fast food place and going back the same way. So I just kind of thought about it, what the heck? So I just bought an extra meal and I pulled over and just stopped and he just was so glad to have someone to talk to. He appreciated the food, but I could see that he was taking care of himself. He had food, but for whatever reason he was there, and he was just really pleased to be seen. And that I stopped and so I hand over this bag of lunch, but it was mainly just he wanted to tell me why he was there and what was going on, and after that, I continued to see him from time to time, and now we know each other.
You're right, though. Just being seen, that was an experience that I had as well. You talked about community, and Kurt, you belong to a few different communities in the city. And during your time, you actually ran into some of your community members accessing the food bank.
Yeah, that was really that really hit home for me. Running into fans of my band, right? And them come up to me and saying, "Hey, it's cool you're doing this." Or actually, first said, "What are you doing here?" Like they didn't know, they didn't know about Sanctum Survivor. But they knew about the band, and so it was that hit home. And the idea that, and you both hit on this a bit. I mean, the idea of community, and what does that mean? What does community mean? I've always taken pride in the fact that I'm very involved in my community here, and that's why I moved home from Vancouver, and like Saskatoon is my community. But Sanctum Survivor made me realize that there's a big chunk, a big part of the community that I didn't know that much about and wasn't that connected to, and that really is the core community, right? And in Saskatoon, that's predominantly Indigenous people, right? And they're predominantly people that have less, right? And it's a different world than the worlds that we come from. And yeah, I mean, I feel like for me, it was doing Survivor was a small act of reconciliation, you know, and I say small because it's just the beginning, you know, and there's a lot more work to be done. So, yeah.
So where do we go from here? What kind of work needs to be done?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, for me, I think all of us should read the TRC. I think go to One Small Step, go to the website. You can see where you can get involved with different community organizations. Some of it involves donating money, but some of it involves other things, right? Just educating yourself on the organizations out there, the work they're doing. Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is educating. If everyone could experience what we three experienced, they would have a greater understanding of our real community in this city and the issues that are facing the underprivileged. And a lot of it's ignorance. I mean, most people I talk to, when they heard my story or they tuned in to the Sanctum Survivor, they were blown away. Like, they didn't realize this was happening in their city, right? They think it's sort of somewhere else. It's in New York or Vancouver. It's right here. And so I think a lot of it's just education of, you know, the rest of the city, the people that aren't in the core communities. And once you're educated, you're typically empathetic, you know, and you've got empathy. But until you get the education, there's not empathy, I would say.
And Betty Ann also chatted about how the people you met on the streets would give anything, their shirt off their back. It didn't matter how little they had, they would give back. And you talk about One Small Step, and, you know, people might not have the money to donate, but it can be the smallest thing that can make the world of a difference for other people who have next to nothing.
That's right, yeah. Well, that blew my, like, probably the most powerful moment of when I did Survivor was, you know, we one of the challenges was what we had to, like, you know, panhandle. We had to try to get $4 or something, and it was so bloody difficult to get $4. And we tried different techniques and different tactics. None of it worked. And then a gentleman that we saw earlier, like the day before, came up and saw us, and this guy had nothing. Like, this guy had nothing, absolutely nothing. And he gave me a toonie, and I like it. It makes me tear up to think about this. Like, I was like, I couldn't take it. I was like, no, I can't. He's like, you need to take it, you know. And it's so powerful. So if he can do that, I mean, imagine what any of us could do that have so much privilege, you know.
And I mean, people are already taking a step by tuning in to our virtual Sanctum Survivor this year. And hopefully we will have more challengers next year. But I want to thank you three, not only for participating in the past, but for continuing working forward and helping make Saskatoon a better place, and for always giving back to Sanctum whenever we call on you. So thank you so much.
It's an honor.
I want to say thank you to everyone who has donated so far this evening. If you are just tuning in now, or maybe you haven't had a chance to make a donation yet, good news, because the Sanctum Care Group Board of Directors is matching all donations made from now until the end of the program. You can make a donation again online or simply by texting your name and the amount you would like to donate to 306-241-6550. Again, that is 306-241-6550. Easy as that, no excuses. Our final speaker tonight is Pebbles. I am so excited to introduce you to Pebbles. Her journey has brought her full circle, and she is now a peer support worker at Sanctum Care Group.
Well, I got really sick from like doing drugs and drinking a lot every day, all day. And I went to the hospital. I don't remember, but I was in the hospital for a couple of months, and then they said they're gonna put me in a home. And I thought that's where I'm gonna die, I thought. Because when I woke up, they were gonna put a tube. I already had the tube in me. I just thought I was gonna die. I asked that woman, I said, is this where I'm gonna die now? Because I prayed to die every day. And every day I woke up. And then when I didn't die, and I asked God, if I have to live, don't let me live like this. Because I couldn't walk, and I had no strength. And I felt so alone. Like I was the only one that had these problems. And then one day, about a year after, the Sanctum came knocking on my door and asked if I wanted to work here as offer my support as a peer mentor, and I said I would. Because I wasn't doing anything, but I wanted to help the people, because like I was saying, because I knew how it felt to be in here and to be just left and thinking that you're gonna die and that there's no one around except just you and other sick people. So I wanted them to feel that they're not alone and that they're loved, and I know how you feel. I went through training, they got me training and the right words to say and to help me to understand about our addiction and why we did the things we did, and so I could help others and understand more. People like us, we deserve a chance, and we deserve a chance. We deserve to be happy too, like everybody else. And a lot of us are smart too, and we just veered off into a destruction. But somehow, through Sanctum, I was able to veer off that road I was on. And I made it. I don't have much, but I'm so thankful what I have. Sanctum saved my life. If it weren't for Sanctum, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. I just want to set a good example, and maybe somebody will just want to get better too.
I want to thank Pebbles so much for sharing her story tonight and being so vulnerable. At this time, I would also like to thank the countless number of volunteers who tirelessly and selflessly give their time to support the work that Sanctum Care Group does. This concludes our first and hopefully last virtual gala. I want to thank you all so much for coming, for listening, and for supporting. And although we are not together in person, your presence here tonight is helping to make a difference in our community. We hope to see you all in person next year at the 6th annual event on Saturday, June 4th, 2022. Mark those calendars. Stay safe and stay well.